Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today, I have the pleasure of having Sergio Altomare join us into the lab. Thank you for stepping into the lab. If you didn't know what you're getting into, I'm glad you got a white shirt on, because we're going to throw a lab coat on and we're going to get right into it. And I'm really excited to have you because, again, you come from our network and there's just so much. You bring a lot of experience. And so the floor is yours, my friend. Welcome to the lab.
Hey, Ruben, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Just getting to know you a little bit. I think that we have a lot in common, and just look forward to sharing whatever I can. If I can throw out some golden nuggets and some wisdom, I'd be happy to do so. And if I can learn, I love to learn.
Absolutely. Well, you come to the right place, my friend. And with that said, so I always like to level set, and I don't like to go with the quintessential. And we were talking about this offline, Sergio, about, where you come from a mastermind group, similar backgrounds. Let's just do it on the air, find out how you've been able to add so much value in the space. And I guess, what I always like to ask, you have a very unique background with you and your partner in crime, which I'm very excited to talk about how you guys have been able to build an empire together. But because you do so much, if you and I were to meet, we're both communicators and we run into each other. What is probably the first thing you mentioned to me that captures my attention, besides the fact that you're a fantastic human being? What if I say, what kind of work do you do? What is the first thing that you usually go to?
So when it comes to work now, first thing I tell you is we like to take people's capital and make it worth a lot more. So our contribution in real estate is through taking novice investors, make them better investors, taking people that are unfamiliar with investing, making them investors, and veteran investors, making them a lot more money. So that's pretty much our MO right now. And, what we love to do. And if I just met you for the first time, the first thing I'm going to do is barrage you with questions, because I love to learn about people and then find those synergies and just roll from there, man.
Smart man. Why do you think I'm interviewing you? I'm trying to squeeze the juice, squeeze the knowledge. All right, so let's talk about that. So first of all, you have a very unique model, and I want to give a big shout out to Corinn, who happens to be, did I pronounce that correctly? I want to make sure we get it right for the audience.
Yeah, Corinn is good.
Corinn is good. Okay, great. And she would have been super welcome. I was expecting the 1-2 punch. Actually, I didn't know what to expect. I've had people come up together and I'm assuming you're between you two, because I want to level set. I guess, are you the one who communicates more? Talk about your part, kind of like how you guys kind of work, because I want to get into the weeds of how you guys have been able to build something as a couple.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I always thought that my extensive background for the Federal Reserve and doing a lot of speaking and a lot of presenting made me the natural person to speak about what we do and how we do it. Yep. But interesting enough, over the last few months, Corinn has been on this big podcast webinar circuit while I've been doing a lot of the writing, and I'm a contributor to Bigger Pockets. So the way I would explain it is I come from a blue collar area of Philadelphia, specifically South Philly, for anybody who knows the area. And Corinn comes from Los Angeles. She's classically trained opera singer, master's degree, the whole bit. So she's the much more polished person, and I'm much more rough and into the weeds and numbers guy and technical ones and zeros kind of guy. So that's our separation of personas, if you will.
Okay. So we're going to get right to the numbers then. You're my numbers guy. I'm glad.
Yeah,
we like numbers.
I love numbers.
So transitioning into what I would call the beginning phase. So you talked about, you're in South Philly. I know we haven't gotten to the weeds of, what kind of businesses that you do exactly within the real estate umbrella. I think it's very large. I think a lot of people want to get the return and et cetera. Novus, was it strategic for you to start with who you know, and in that sense for you was Corinn, she's right next to you. You guys are partners. You started this thing. Was that intentional? Did that kind of, did you pull a couple of friends together? How did this family boutique kind of arise from the ground up?
So it's interesting. So we started dating in April of 2012, right? And so she was in the midst of kind of just started working full time for the Fed. Her family, father is attorney, mom Montessori school teacher from Los Angeles. They've always been heavily invested in real estate. I made a run at buying a duplex house hacking back in 2007. Long story, it failed miserably for not as much fault of my own, but some lessons learned there. So she was looking to acquire a multifamily property to live in. And she was going to live in one unit, rent out the other two. It was a beautiful, beautiful house hacking model. Connected her with some of the folks in my network, realtors, lenders, what have you. Started looking at some properties. I started going along. I've always been a little handy. And so she buys the first property, and the unit that she was going to live in required some elbow grease, some lipstick, getting it nice and pretty. So we spent nights and weekends sanding, painting, doing whatever. And in the meantime, she had moved in with me because her lease expired where she was living. So we did all this work, got the place looking great. And at the end of the day, we said, hey, things are going really well. Why don't we just rent out that unit as well? And so we did. And then things were going well. I'm a systems guy, so I immediately started implementing software to manage the property and kind of put together more of a professional approach to even just a few tenants. Following year, we found a full gut rehab triplex in the city, and we said, why don't we buy that one as well? We did that. Next thing you know, we started to have a pipeline of properties, excuse me, and we didn't have the capital to buy them all. So we started to put feelers out and say, hey, who's interested in getting into real estate? We pulled together 3 other investors for the next deal, which is just a duplex, and went through all the process with attorneys and everything. Fast forward up until 2018, we kind of sold off a bunch of properties. We did like half a dozen deals, and we just said, hey, we need to prove the model full cycle. So let's sell those properties. Let's get the capital out, get the rewards. They had peaked in terms of value. And then we decided we needed to make a pivot. There was going to be a recession at some point, we thought, based on the market cycle. And we ended up pivoting to self-storage. Along the way, everything was built around systems and processes. Mind you, we were both working full time. So whether it's mail merge, lease documents, email templates, whatever the case may be, anytime we had a need within our business, and we operated as a business from the start, we made sure we implemented controls, operations, processes, and it just organically grew. We started to manage other people's properties. Some other folks sold off portfolios in other parts of the country, helped facilitate their acquiring them there. And we grew. That was really, we just never looked at it as this is going to be a business. We just woke up one day and just said, holy cow, we have something going. And then it was about what is our strategy to get us away from the day job. And ultimately we got it to where Corinn left in 2016 and I left in 2017 and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. Sergio, you left so many gems. And speaking of systems, I got ones too, right? So as you're speaking, I want to capture those because that's what we do in the lab. And I don't want to let these wonderful moments slip through the cracks. So I want to take a step back because you talked about starting in your own backyard. So is that what it was? Like the duplex originally you started from your own backyard? Was this in South Philly? Is that where it was?
Actually not quite South Philly, but a neighborhood. So Philly's just very much neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
And more so than anywhere, right? So within a 1/10 of a mile, you can cross over to probably 3 different neighborhoods. And so this was a neighborhood that was very much up and coming, a lot of new development, a lot of youngsters looking to move there. So it was our backyard. We know the city well. Yeah. And then each neighborhood that we picked had similar characteristics, up growth, very much interest in new folks coming there, a lot of hip restaurants, coffee shops, same type of profile. And so they became kind of no-brainers. And being a numbers guy, if I'm talking to a realtor and they say, hey, you can get $1,200 a month in rent for that, my systems tell me I can probably do $1,300 or whatever. So I can analyze deals based on the way that I know that I can operate and squeeze them to where they get the most value.
Got it. So we're going to get to that in a second, because you know me, I love systems more than anybody.
Yep.
But I definitely want to bring, give our listeners more or less of a roadmap, which you've done so well. And I do want to recap it real quick. So you start with the duplex, then you go ahead and move with the triplex. Now, you did mention something key, and I'm not sure that folks know this, and I want to see if I can tie the two together. You did mention that you had a pipeline. Your pipeline of deals started to increase. Can you touch on that a little bit? Was it your realtor license? I know you're another KW agent.
Right.
As well. Where was that pipeline coming from, Sergio?
So the second property that we bought was essentially, it was a full gut rehab triplex, right? And the guy that developed it was a flipper, okay? And so the agent that I worked with, I wasn't an agent at the time, was also turned into a good friend now. This is what they did. And I basically told him, I said, look, we can close. I'm confident in our ability. If you have any similar types of properties, I'll buy them all day long. And sure enough, he started to find because he did a lot of single families. I never liked single families, and we could talk about that as well. Always like multi-families. If you're missing a tenant, you have another one to cover the expenses. So I said, as long as they're multifamily, we'll buy them all day long. And so he was doing duplexes, triplexes, quads, and he was doing 1-2 a year. And that allowed us, I had them under contract before they were even done being developed. I had them fully leased up before the tile was put down. So it was pretty phenomenal.
So this is when you say you had them all, yes, 1 to 2, was it a year you said?
From 2000, we started acquiring these properties. First one was 2013. Yeah. The last one, I think, was 2016.
So that agent was specifically representing, or I'm not sure if it was an agent and developer, but you're saying he had that relationship where you'd be first in line. Okay, so that's fantastic. So then you had more or less that relationship, and I think that's really important. That's why I didn't want to let that slip through the cracks, because I think not only is it your former relationship with the actual realtor himself, letting him know that you're very credible, and then you build that relationship long term. But I'm sure that helped you gain a lot of traction, which is interesting. You talked about then, Sergio, your systems where, let's say one may be able to make $1,100. You said $1,300. What is that gap that you're closing within the marketplace that allows you to be a little bit more efficient in your cash flow?
So it's actually, what's interesting is it's simple in concept, but a lot of folks fail to execute, and it's really highest quality listings. So we took professional pictures from the start, right? And so when it came to our properties, even those that weren't finished, the listings were of high quality. We had detailed plans. We had descriptions that captivated an individual. And there's a big difference when you look at, as a realtor yourself, when you look at somebody looking to sell $100,000 property or $1 million property. The $1 million property is going to have drone footage and whatever. The technology now allows you to do that for whatever size property. So if you and me have a triplex next to each other and we're both looking to rent them out, and you're just saying 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and have a couple pictures, and my listing is that much nicer, and I give that welcoming image to whoever's looking at it, they're going to come to me. And then the same thing when it comes to being responsive. If somebody sends an inquiry on a property, you got to get back to them immediately, if not sooner. And so a potential tenant wants to hear back in an hour or less. If not, chances are they moved on. And so from early on, we added some automation. So if somebody sent an inquiry, I got an email that said I'm interested in whatever, and I sent them an email template right back. I can show you it these days and time. So it was really just being ultra responsive and high quality listings. And to this day, that still proves to be the most effective model. Not to mention having properties that are clean, well maintained, presentable. You don't take pictures with just piles and piles of crap everywhere. It's what you put into a property is what you get out.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're touching on this, because I think right now there's such an opportunity, and you're kind of speaking to us as well, because I am a licensed realtor as well, and we're currently doing projects. But to anybody who's out there, there's I think to your point, I love what you said, Sergio, that it is easy to do. It's also easy not to do, because a lot of people aren't doing it, and I think honestly that's the formula of success. I think the information is out there, just applying it is the hard part. But at the same time, the good news is if you do have that grit and discipline, you're able to probably separate yourself in the marketplace. But I think the reason why that's also a really good point, Sergio, is because in these times, I feel giving access, whether it's a virtual tour or all that, I think for all the agents who might be listening to this out there, it's definitely an opportunity to separate yourself from the pack and maybe go a little bit above and beyond to give that experience at home as we're, kind of consuming content. Digitally.
Yeah, and to that point, Ruben, since COVID started, we've actually done even better in terms of our rentals. People are talking about not getting rents or whatever. Our rents have dramatically increased in some cases when we've had turnover. And what we did early on was we identified opportunities. So whereas someone said we're fearful of showing an apartment or whatever, we said, no, the technology allows for us to be able to do things virtually. So we almost immediately went to 3D Matterport tours to where people can actually walk through a property online. We do that 100% of the time now on our listings. We did Zoom open houses. So now our process is, even to this day, that you have a 3D Matterport tour. You can walk through our property, but even to this day, we do the 3D Matterport tour. So an individual can tour a property and then through the online 3D tour, then what they do is they request the showing, and it's done through a Zoom open house. And then when we get that Zoom open house done, then we request that they apply. Once they apply, then we give them a in-person tour. So we kind of weed out people along the way.
Yeah. So I think, Sergio, that's interesting, because you were just touching on, going above and beyond with listings. I guess help me understand, is there a specific, you talked about doing Zoom open houses, which I think is phenomenal. I think what's really interesting is also tackling the issue where if people are, concerned about maybe their sanity, maybe it's having hand sanitizer there, maybe it's having gloves, maybe it's having there's opportunities, right? I guess I'm curious for the virtual walkthrough. Do you have a vendor in mind that you might want to share with our community if they're listening?
So if you look up Matterport, so Matterport is a company that provides the platform to host the 3D tours and the cameras to do it. So one thing that we're learning is that if you buy one of these cameras, it's really not rocket science to do it yourself. You're basically just walking through a property as you normally would and setting up the camera, and it takes a 3D picture. Oh. And then once it's uploaded, Matterport does its magic, and then you can go back and then highlight different things as different features of a property. Like this is a Wi-Fi thermostat or garbage disposal or whatever the case may be. You augment it. You can take basically has a ruler function to measure a room. So the capabilities are endless. If you just look at Matterport photographer near me, then you'll find one. We landed on a photographer and basically negotiated a package deal for if we do so many of these, we get such a percentage off. So there's a lot of local photographers. You just need to find one that's doing Matterport tours.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that'll be super valuable to our listeners, and even for myself, because we're currently putting some new properties on the market. So that's fantastic. Okay, so this is such great because you're hitting all the points. I want to transition, or piggyback really on the system. So we talked about the listings. I know obviously your umbrella of real estate. You go on your website, which we're definitely going to share with the listeners, and you see there's the investors, there's the management, there's real estate consulting, there's the syndication. How have those kind of progressed into some of the bigger units you've been involved in? Is it are you kind of leveraging the systems from the property management company? Is it you, the property management company, who's actually? I'm kind of curious as to how you're able to kind of scale this model into the multifamily space as well.
Sure. So the way I look at it, so my background is technology. I've been implementing hardware, software for many years, right? So now technology has advanced to the point where a single system or a single platform has a lot of functionality to integrate with a lot of other functionality. So for example, if you're using, say, in a real estate world, showing time, and somebody can go out there and schedule a tour of a property, and then it synchronizes with your calendar and whatnot. So from a property management perspective, when we build out a particular portfolio or properties, whether it's 1 unit, 2 units, or 50 units, it has the capabilities to adapt to what you need. For example, as I build out one bedroom unit and the building has 5 of them, well, now I just click duplicate, right? And then I just change a unit number, right? When it comes time for looking at components for showing, we use a product called Show Mojo, right? And Show Mojo, for your listeners, if you're doing anything in the rental space, it's our secret sauce, right? It directly integrates and intercepts emails for people inquiring on rental properties, and it will respond and give them a predefined calendar to choose a listing. It happens instantly. So we build in all that automation. And if you focus on automation and leveraging the technology that is also mobile friendly, that you can do it from your phone as well as your PC, the possibilities are endless. And then when it comes to economies of scale, as you get bigger, if you have the right systems in place that are tightly integrated, you can scale along with it. It's kind of you want Google Drive to store things, and you run out of space, you just pay for more and it magically expands, right? So that technology, cloud services, is out there. There are so many different players in the real estate world that it doesn't make sense to not use them, right? It's imperative. And so what our philosophy is if I have a need or if I have a problem to solve, before I look at people to solve it, I will look at technology to solve it. And chances are somebody's developed something for that niche, whether it's inspections, whether it's leasing, whether it's finding contractors. It's all there. It's at your fingertips. We walk around with a computer in our pocket. When I got started, the capabilities of my cell phone, I needed a room full of servers to get there, right? So it's there, and you just got to take advantage. If anybody's interested in learning about a specific thing, I'd be happy to share, whatever the case may be. That's really what it's all about now. It's just finding the tools, build your toolkit, build that toolbox to enable you to do as much as you can at a reasonable cost, because a lot of these tools are not expensive, and the time that you save is tremendous.
I love the part when you say before you look at human resources, you look at technology, because I couldn't agree more. And I just think that's so true. Like, it's so interesting because, the proof is in the pudding. Like, we have so many wonderful individuals like you who step in, who've gained traction, who are doing things at scale. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is, Sergio, they're as good as their systems, just like you. And so I think it's just fascinating anytime there's an issue. Okay. Another point that I like that you touched on is, like, somebody is out there and I always say this too with this app, like, there is one thing that I will pitch later that I have not found to this day, but typically, Sergio, you go in this phone, this powerful machine that once used to, like, to your point, used to be an entire room. to operate, and you literally will find an answer. Like you type in the app that like the problem you're trying to solve in the app store, and you will find it. So you know what? I'll take the opportunity right now, Sergio. I don't know. You're my tech guy.
Yep.
I'm looking for an application, guys. And guys, comment to the show, comment in the show, DM us, reach out to us. It's fascinating to me that there is not an application out there that will let you send text messages, scheduled messages, and also if someone sends me a text and I've read it, mark it as unread so I can go back to respond. I've been looking for this. If you find it before I do, Sergio, please holler at me. Just
the under the hood guy, it's part of it. Is the problem is I would think less about the technology not being there, but more of the control of either iOS and Android, and that's not part of the underlying platform to allow somebody to code to do that. So, when you're installing an app and it says so-and-so app wants to use your camera, right? They don't have the granular level to say, I want to access your text messages and, oh, by the way, change them, right? So that's a whole nother permission animal. Now, somebody can correct me and say that I'm wrong, but I don't know that either it doesn't exist because of that, or somebody just hasn't created the demand isn't there.
Oh yeah, well, demand is here. Because I currently have 127 text messages now that I haven't yet to read. And what happens is when I open it and I'm thinking I'm in the middle of a show, I'll get back to it, it's not going to get responded. But luckily, obviously, I'm as good as my team and some of our other systems. But this is the phone thing is an issue. So I'm just going to put it out into the universe and see what happens.
Now, so there are ways of, you familiar with Zapier?
Yes.
So there may be the ability to create a Zap to where I get a text message, and if I immediately send that contents and that caller or that text sender to an Excel spreadsheet, and then put some coding within the spreadsheet to be able to do that, to where you can flag it and unflag it. There's got to be some creative ways to it. There's also a tool that I've used called Pulse, which is Pulse. So you can text from your computer and it synchronizes. So let's get together. Let's see if we can figure this out. I know.
Let's crack this thing, man.
A tool like Zapier is where there is no integration. That is a middleware component that allows you to build it. And so it's phenomenal. One quick tip for your listeners and the audience. Our philosophy when it comes to selecting technology is pretty straightforward. One is it must be cloud-based. All right. Yeah. I don't care if you took my computer and threw it out the window, I can go buy a new one and be up and running in 10 minutes. All right. Absolutely. So it has to be cloud-based, cloud systems, and the majority of your systems you want to integrate with your back-end platform. For us, it's Google Business, right? Google for My Business. So everything I do, I want it to connect with Google Contacts, integrate with Gmail, whatever. And whatever it can't integrate with, then that's when I'll use a bolt-on system to try and facilitate and bridge that gap. There are some exceptions where some tools just aren't going to play together. Yeah. But when I'm evaluating tools, I say, okay, does it integrate with what I am doing right now? If the answer is yes, I proceed. If the answer is no, then I'll look at an alternative.
I love that. It's not, you noticed to our listeners, you didn't just, throw in the towel and say, well, I guess it doesn't. No, there's always an alternative.
Absolutely.
And that's, again, the problem solving mindset that you have. So getting into the meat and potatoes, and I'm actually excited about this. I saved the best for last. What I think is best. Hopefully my listeners will believe that too, because the people we've had in the lab have been fantastic, but I do not know anyone who stepped in the lab who owns storage units. So I'm excited, especially because I think it'll be relevant to maybe, the different type of, asset classes or type of investments that you have as we can compare it to. And I think it'll be great for us to get into. So why storage units? How did that come about? We talked about the duplex, triplex, scaling to a couple more units. So actually, before I get to storage units, I'm going to actually interrupt myself a little bit. I know I'm all over the place, guys. You guys know this, but there's an art to it in the lab.
Sure.
So getting back to that middle gap before we get into storage units, the scaling, was it at a quad level? Was it I know you're doing syndication, so I see where, I'm kind of setting you up here. What was that next step like before we get into storage?
So the largest deal that we had done prior to the pivot was under 20 units. Okay. And we were ready to take that next step, right? We were looking at portfolios. We were looking at larger properties. The problem I kept coming back to was that when I underwrote the deals from a syndication standpoint, I couldn't make the numbers work, right? I have to underwrite to a certain return in order to ensure that us as syndication sponsors or project sponsors and investors are going to both do well on it, right? And so you have a lot of individual private investors that have maybe either a lot looser requirements than my underwriting or stupid money. So when
why do you think that is? I want to interrupt you for a second or just make sure that we anchor that. Why do you think that they're doing this? Is it just to get in, or what is it?
It's just lack of discipline to take it to the extreme. If you want to do a deal, you can find a deal to do a deal, right? If you want to do a good deal, you have to get deep into the weeds. You can't cut corners. There's so many books out there that have written the instructions on how to analyze properties. Bigger Pockets, all of these different communities exist, right? And you hear it over and over. These are the areas you don't cut corners. And for us, if a broker sends me a offering document on a property, it's guaranteed to be wrong because they want to sell it for the highest amount of money they can get for their seller. And as a buyer, you have to take that and basically take the solid numbers, whether it be rents, property taxes, things that are verifiable, and then throw the rest in the trash. And then build out your pro formas and your analysis based on what you know. So for us, when I'm looking at these larger deals, a broker might say, hey, this is a 6.5 cap. And when I do my analysis, it's like, no, it's more like 5.5. And I can never show an investor the types of returns that we're committed to delivering with those types of properties. So you couple that with you have an overheated market, a lot of silly money being thrown around. Everybody wants to be in multifamily. It's flashy. I'm a syndicator, value add. I'm going to put in new kitchens and baths. Everybody's doing it, right? We knew that, all right, one is you have an overheated market, right? There's cheap money. You have a lot of money in the market. You have a lot of people that are putting together deals. And we knew that we were 8-9 years into a bull market. And just knowing the history of the economy says that cycles usually only go to about 10 years. So we recognize that. We don't want to wait till the bubble bursts. And a lot of people learned that in 2007, 2008, that got crushed. So we said, how do we prepare now? We're always looking at how do we prepare for the next 2 years? And you're never going to be able to predict the future, but you can make some educated guesses that you're not going to lose your shirt on. So we looked at, all right, we're not finding the deals that we want to do. We're well equipped and well capitalized to do bigger deals. Where are these deals? What else? What other asset classes can we prepare for? And we landed on 2 asset classes that we thought were going to be well prepared for a recession. Manufactured home communities or mobile home parks, which is another level down in terms of housing affordability, and self-storage. And then we ended up honing in and becoming laser focused on self-storage because during the last recession, it was the only asset class that returned a positive number to potential investors. And the reason for that is that self-storage is needed in all phases of individual's life, right? During good times, you're expanding your lifestyle. You're getting more toys. You're buying more stuff. And you don't want to get rid of the stuff, so you put it in storage, right? During bad times, people have to downsize. They may have to move back home with their parents. They may have to sell their McMansion or whatever, or even their business, they don't want to lose their stuff. To spend $50 to $150 a month to keep it in storage is easy. So they put it in storage. So it's that one asset class that captures both sides. And this is why we're big on it now, is because regardless of where the economy goes, if it continues to always go up, we'll be fine. If the market turns around and goes south, we'll be fine. And we're seeing that. We've proven that with our storage facility now. We're seeing it in the industry where REITs are still buying up and whatnot. And self-storage offers the ability to analyze not just a property, but a market. It's very much local. It's a 3 to 5 mile radius of a facility that you're going to base your performance on. So the analysis that goes into evaluating a self-storage property is not rocket science. It's, in fact, I think it might even be less intensive than multifamily, where there's a lot more competition to evaluate. It doesn't exist in self-storage. You got expense ratios that are 25, 30%, maybe 35%, whereas multifamily can go all the way up to 50%. Your break-even ratio is much lower. You're not dealing with toilets clogged in the middle of the night, flooded basements, as we dealt with all over the place yesterday from the storm that kicked us in the tail. No broken air conditioning. It's simple. The eviction process is pretty straightforward. If you don't pay your rent in 60 days, there is a lien law. I get to put a lien on your personal belongings and then auction them off to recover my money, and then I re-rent it. So the flexibility is just, it's all there. And then nowadays there are ancillary ways of bringing in additional revenue. We know the traditional ways: U-Haul rental trucks, climate controlled, tenant insurance, those types of things. But now we're seeing there's an opportunity for even selling propane at a facility, retail, you name it. You know,
okay, so I think you're making an assumption that your plethora of knowledge, we know. I actually don't know about the U-Haul, and I don't know about the retail. So can you touch on that a bit? Because I think you're bringing in some, like, a breath of fresh air here, because
Sure.
You talked about 25% expense ratio, and I was just like, took a hit back. And then,
Right.
you know, you mentioned the lien, the liens that you can put within 60 days, and I was just like, hold on. So this is great. This is exactly how I wanted to transition and finish out, because I think this is going to be so enlightening. So do please talk about briefly the U-Haul and the separate opportunities that you can actually tack onto the storage facilities.
Sure. So think of a why someone uses, or when somebody uses self-storage, right? So I'm moving. Okay. So if I'm moving, all right, I need to put some stuff in storage. What do I need to get it there? Right. I need a truck, and chances are you don't have a truck. So now I rent a truck, right? And you can partner with U-Haul. You can buy your own equipment. You provide those ancillary services. When you come into my office to rent a unit, behind me is packing supplies. I have boxes. I have storage tape. I have box cutters. I have rope. I have make it a one-stop shop. And then, and oh, by the way, when your stuff is in storage, you buy insurance to protect it in case of a rodent gets in there and starts chewing up your furniture, theft, whatever. So now each one of those, it's either a recurring cost, like tenant insurance is an extra $9 a month. Right, you're going to give some back to the insurance carrier, but that's an extra revenue stream. And
Sergio, you're giving so many gems. I want to make sure I capture that. Are you structuring a partnership with an insurance company and getting like an overhead or some kind of kickback, or is that what you're
exactly
saying?
Right? So you could think of it: if you sell a $9 a month policy, you'll get $4 or $5 back, and you require insurance. And somebody can have their own personal insurance, but personal insurance, like your homeowner's insurance, isn't going to have the same type of coverage. Your premiums may go up. So it's really a phenomenal part of it. And then the biggest thing that we sell is when you need a storage unit, you need to lock it. And so we sell you a padlock. And padlock, I can buy them in bulk for $4 a piece, and then we sell them for $12.
Do you reuse these padlocks in-house?
Well, once a tenant buys them, it's theirs.
Yeah. I'm just curious as to, like, I'm just thinking, again, this is completely new. Like, I'm even thinking like, wow. Okay. So how are you factoring in, all this inventory? Because it sounds like it can be a lot of things. How do you factor in your supply and demand? Is it analytics? Is it as it comes? Yeah. Is it, I'm curious.
So there are industry statistics in terms of self-storage, right? So on any given area, what we know is it's very local. So depending on how rural or urban it is, the demand is going to expand and contract, but usually never going to be outside of 5-mile radius. All right. So then you look at the population within that area, and then you look at what is the total square footage of self-storage that's available in that area.
Yes.
And then you look at the ratio that's being utilized. So if it's an area that has 10,000 individuals and 1,000 square feet of self-storage, then you get to a 10% ratio of utilization. So you want to make sure that the amount of square footage available is less. It's seven square foot or less per person, which means that there is, and that's a national statistic, is 7 square footage is the average utilization rate of square footage per person. So if you have an area that whatever the population is, the square footage, and there are tools. There's a site called Radius Plus, and that you can just pretty much analyze in a given area. What you can't account for necessarily is what other facilities might be popping up in the area, although we know that the barrier to entry for new facilities in self-storage is higher than it is in many other asset classes, because it doesn't bring in the tax revenue from a locality standpoint. Neighbors generally frown on new facilities. So generally speaking, you can do a supply-demand analysis and understand even if you were to expand on an existing facility, how much more square footage you can add that supports the population that you have. So those are simple statistics that you use to measure and analyze storage. And if the numbers pan out, you're in good shape.
Wow. This is amazing. So Sergio, the one thing that comes to mind as you're saying all this, I'm thinking, okay, this is the next question is, all right, so how long are the typical leases in this kind of business? Is it month to month? Yep. Is it, 6 months? Like, what is it?
They're month-to-month leases, mm-hmm. and we generally require 15 days notice when somebody's moving out, or else you can just tack on another fee. By the way, that's another income stream is the fee structure. So you typically have a late fee from a residential tenant standpoint. When it comes to self-storage, I could charge a reservation fee. I can charge an improper notice fee. We obviously have late fees, lock cut fees. There are people that charge a fee if somebody wants a statement delivered. So there are so many different ways of doing that. And then, I'm sorry, the other question was?
The leases. And then my next question. So yeah, how long do they typically?
So we consider self-storage is considered to have sticky tenants. What that means is the average tenancy is about 12 months.
No kidding.
They can go up to 24 months is average when you look at an entire facility. Now you'll have some that only rent for 3-4 months, but inevitably somebody says, hey, I only need it for a month. But who wakes up on a Saturday morning and wants to go get their storage unit unloaded and move it somewhere else? So they might say, it happens with us regularly. Somebody will say, hey, I only need it for 2 months. A year later, they're still there. Because once it goes in storage, you forget about it.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind. You put it on auto payment. It's on your credit card. It's that app that you got on your phone that you forgot you even bought and you're paying for, right? So it's phenomenal. And then there's also the ability, the rental increases. Revenue management is huge in self-storage. So they move in at a certain rate, and you can control the prices, whether they're looking at it online or walking in from the street. You can pretty much set different prices for the same units, right? You can do it special. You can have specials, senior discounts, police and fire discounts. You can control the cost that way, but then you also set it to where there's automatic increases to their rent rate, say when in the first 8 months that they move in. Now, in traditional apartments, you're going to raise the rent by 3-4% per year. Well, in self-storage, it's going to be more closer to 5 or 10%. And the reason for that is if you're paying $100 a month in rent and I increase your rent 10%, it's now $110. Is that $10 enough for you to go take a Saturday, empty out your unit, and go move to a facility down the street that's only charging $100? It ain't going to happen.
It's not worth it.
So that's why we call them sticky tenants, and it's a phenomenal aspect of it, and that's how you continuously increase value in your properties. Other interesting factoid is up to 80% of existing self-storage facilities are owned by individuals that have less than one or maybe a couple properties, as opposed to multifamily. It's the opposite, right? And so what that means is it's mom and pop owners. They have their one facility, they operate it, they don't want to increase rents, they may be doing things with paper and pen, which is our facility that we acquired. They don't maximize the value because they don't have to. They're making what they're making off of it, and they're comfortable with it. So when you're looking at a property and you find an owner that is up there in age, they're looking to get out, there's the opportunity to buy it, to implement all the new technologies, the systems that, again, are all tightly integrated. I could release you a unit from right here and on my phone, and I can give you a gate code and get you into my facility out in Lancaster without getting up. Electronic signatures for leasing. The technology and integration is incredible. So the possibilities are all over the place. I mean, they're just endless.
Okay, so very interesting. Is it the same type of financing when a lender perhaps is looking to finance, again, obviously this is commercial real estate, but is it the same debt service,
Yep.
debt to income ratio, or like what is it? Not debt to income, I'm sorry, the
Debt coverage, yep.
Debt coverage is what I meant. What are they looking at? Is it riskier for them? What is your experience?
Actually, believe it or not, right now, it's the preferred asset class for commercial lenders. It really is, because for the exact reasons that we're talking about, right? So when it comes to, there's not going to be eviction moratorium on self-storage just because there's no reason for it. So the loan terms are going to be similar to multifamily, 75 LTV, 60, 65, whatever the case may be, 25, 30-year amortizing loans, 3-4%, maybe as a 5-year balloon. They're based strictly on the performance of the property. There's not, you're not submitting all these leases and all this other stuff. It's, believe it or not, of all of the loans that I've ever gotten for our self-storage facility was by far the easiest.
Yeah. And just to preface again, to spike our interest again, I believe you have, is it 200 over 200 units of storage? Is that how the count goes?
Yeah. So our facility, it's actually in Birmingham, PA, just outside of Lancaster. It's about, including our parking and RV, that's another ancillary income source, as you allow RVs, boats, or whatever to park. We have 50 parking spots. So ours is 240 storage units and 50 parking spots. So the parking spots range from $50 to $70 a month, and the storage units from a 5x5, which is about $35, $40 a month, all the way up to $145 a month for a big 10x20. And when we acquired our property, it was about 65% occupied, 67% economic occupancy, which is the amount of income it's generating relative to the maximum amount that it can generate. And those are the numbers that you want to focus on. And we've been able to increase it over 10% economic occupancy in under a year.
Wow.
Just by implementing an online system. That's it.
And that's online onboarding. Is that what you mean? Or
Online onboarding, you can go to our website, you can reserve a unit, you can move in a unit. When you do a search, you can pull up Google Maps. None of this existed. The guy had a website that he didn't even know how to capture an email from.
That's something right there. But that's tremendous value, and I think what's really cool about your business model is you've completely adapted to serve the marketplace, and I think it's fascinating to hear too how people are downsizing. Like this is the reality of what goes on in the marketplace. So it's interesting that not only you're serving, but you also have a more or less bulletproof asset. I would look at it. So first of all, I mean, I can't thank you enough. This has been such good gems. I always like to give a quick fire round because you are, very systems driven. You talked about some applications. I want to see maybe we can squeeze a little bit more out of you. Real quick, do you have a favorite book that you've kind of encountered or you've recently been tapping into as a resource? Or maybe you don't read books, maybe it's audio. What is it?
So very much into books, and my if I had to pick one, a lot of people in real estate will either choose Rich Dad Poor Dad or Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich is hits home more for me. I'm very much interested in philosophy and more of our subconscious drivers. If I had to pick another one, would be maybe controversial based on who the author is. Osho, The Book of Secrets. That's more of a kind of spiritual self-enlightenment type of lot of meditations. I'm very big into mindfulness. So those are probably some of have built my core. They're my foundation of my property.
I love that. Oh, I love how you said that. That was good. Your foundation, your property. Best habit that serves you every day.
Probably meditation, journaling.
Got it. Best tool that helps you excel throughout the day.
Excel throughout the day. Probably my journal and just planning 2-3 days in advance.
Got it. Yeah, you're going to love this one. 1 300-unit apartment building or 1 300-unit storage facility?
Well, the 300, it would probably have to be more of 1,000-unit storage facility, and I would choose it just because 300-unit apartment building is going to generate me a lot more revenue than a 300-unit storage facility. But in terms of which I'd rather manage, certainly the storage facility.
Interesting. I'm glad we touched on that. I don't think we were able to tie those two together. But that's interesting. Class A or Class C?
Class C.
Nice. Cash flow or equity?
Equity all the way.
Very interesting. Self-manage or outsource?
Self-manage. The only way to maximize money, maximize the value. Yep.
We talked about this. What's the newest piece of software right now that your team is using that you're thriving on? I know we touched on a few, but is there one that's you want to preface? And
Investor Management Services, IMS. It's an investor platform that gives us institutional grade capabilities for investors to not only participate in our deals, but also track their performance on their investments. It's awesome. Very expensive, but awesome.
That sounds expensive, but we like it. I love it. Investing within. First of all, I want to thank you, first of all, because you've not only enlightened me, but I know you're going to enlighten the rest of our listeners, and I think that's what this is all about. So you're coming into the lab like a true practitioner, which is what we're all about.
Yeah.
How can the people find out more about what you're doing, your business is doing? Where can they find out more about you?
So one is you can always shoot me an email, Sergio@hfireholdings.com. hfireholdings.com is also our website. Sign up to our mailing list, our investor mailing list, or syndication insider. We're not the spammy types. We provide education and a lot of good content. And then you can also follow me on Bigger Pockets. I'm a contributor there. And then lastly, LinkedIn.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we include that in the show notes. And just like that, thank you, Sergio. And we are out.